Tails. By George, I'll take it. Hello, everybody. Peter Paul Van Camp here, and I have boxed myself into this corner this morning for a pretty good reason, I think. It's in order to celebrate a birthday. The birthday of this gentleman right here, Harry Bertram Dencer, born this date, July the 7th, 1875, in Coshocton, Ohio. He was my great-granddad. Say, I have a better picture of him right here. There's his face, and there, right in the middle of it, is his nose. Now, I point this out because HB's nose, they always called him HB, it's the only name he answered to. HB's nose features rather prominently in this poem I'm going to give you. Now, I'll put this away because I need my hands, but remind me at the end to bring it up once more for a final look at HB. This piece is called Walking Liberty. Walking Liberty was the name of a coin issued by the United States Mint up until about 1916. It was a $50 or 4-bit piece, and it too plays a role in this piece. A couple of junctures I should be rubbing my nose with a $50 coin the way HB used to do, for very good reason himself, and that will all be made clear to you. Walking Liberty is rather an ironic title, I should add, because HB not only had a rather sharp-tongued wife and 4 hungry daughters at home. When he went to work in the morning, he worked as a letter carrier, a postman. So the mail route that he was walking year after year rather prescribed any liberty he might have had in his walking. Hence the irony, and there's the preamble. So, let's begin this Walking Liberty with a little musical salvo, which shall be repeated from time to time. Here we go. In my grandma's front parlor sat this fancy brown jar. Inside was some change that used to rattle around in HB's pants pocket as he walked about town when he was a much younger fella. Old coins, Indian head pennies, buffalo nickels, worn down dimes and quarters, and a tarnished $50 he used to rub on his nose, he said, for luck, as he listened on the radio to the afternoon ball games. In 1948, that greased-up $50 helped us win a World Series, HB always claimed. HB had been a grocery clerk. HB had been the mailman. HB had a wife and 4 daughters they'd reared. HB had an armchair. HB had the radio. HB always had a fondness for a nice ice-cold beer. For our purposes here, this would be a better story if I knew more about the grocery where HB had put in time, more than that he'd worked in one around 1900 when he'd not long been married and they had their first child, who would live to be 104, by the way. And those worn dimes and quarters and the tarnished $50 still had a shine to them back in those days. Every Friday night HB took off his frayed collar, stood in the kitchen and turned out his pockets, shook his head and kind of wondered as he stacked up his pay. A 50-cent piece then was nothing to be squandered. No, a 50-cent piece you were better off to save. HB had been a grocery clerk. HB had been the mailman. HB had a wife and 4 daughters in the picture frame. HB had an armchair. HB had the radio. HB always had at least $50 to his name. HB had his mail route for decades and decades, 3 decades and a half. He walked without liberty on stiffening limbs, and the old coins got older at the same rate as he did, replaced with bright new ones like they finally did with him. HB put his feet up. He was out of circulation. That lucky $50 stayed at home in his watch pocket. Seldom missed a ball game, and in the late innings, he'd fish it out and grease it up when his team got stuck. Sometimes it worked, and if it did, he would cheer by taking just a sip of that nice ice-cold beer. H.B. had been a grocery clerk. H.B. had been the mailman. H.B. had a wife and 4 daughters they'd raised. H.B. had an armchair. H.B. had the radio. H.B. hoped for the best, but let's just be clear. If luck ran against him, well, he still sipped his cold beer. And he broke about even to the end of his days. H.B. 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 Happy birthday, H.B., and many more.